Hey everyone, welcome back to Engelbart. So you've got your fancy new Odroid Go Advance. You managed to put it together and hey, it even powers on. Good job! But, oh no, how do you make it work and get your games onto the thing? Well, fear not my friends, for that is why I am here today. I will show you how to download and install an operating system, how to transfer your system and game files, all using primarily a Windows-based computer. I may throw a little bit of how to do it in Linux as well, just so you can see what that looks like. And just a disclaimer, this video is for informational purposes only, so I'm not responsible if you somehow manage to break your computer, erase your drives, or somehow cause a nuclear meltdown.
In there, guys.
Thanks, Homer.
Before I begin, I mentioned in my review and showed in my assembly video that this device is really for people with at least a modicum of hardware experience. The same can be said of the software side of things. Installing an OS and games isn't super difficult, but it's not particularly easy either. You'll need to understand the basics of your computer. Things like where your downloaded files go, how to install software, how to identify the drive letters of your storage devices, and more. In some ways, dealing with the software side of things is actually a bit more complicated than putting the device itself together. So first things first, what do you need? For the purposes of this tutorial, you'll need a Windows-based computer, a micro SD card, and some method to read and write to that micro SD card on your computer. For this, you can either use a micro to full-size SD card adapter, if you've already got a card reader slot on your computer, or you can just get a separate USB card reader. I personally have a separate USB card reader. As for your micro SD card, I would recommend one that is at minimum 64 gigabytes. 128 or higher is better, especially if you'll be playing images of CD-based games. You'll also need a few programs on your computer. One that can write the image files that we're going to download that contain the operating system, and another to deal with the Linux formatted partitions of the micro SD card after you install those. If you run a version of Linux on your computer, like Ubuntu for example, then you would only need the image writer. Next up, you'll need to decide which OS to download and install. You'll have your choice of multiple OSs. At the time of this recording, there's currently about 6, but there might be more as of the time you're actually watching this. You can currently get all of them from the official Odroid Go Advance website and the forums within that official site. The quote-unquote official image is here right on the landing page for the system. The community releases of the other OSs can be found here in the forums. I'll have links in the description below. Once you've got your image file, the next thing you'll need is software to write that image to your micro SD card. You'll have your choice of any image writing software that you want to use. For this tutorial, I'll be using the popular program Balena Etcher, which is also what's recommended from the Odroid Go Advance site. To download Etcher, head over to its homepage where you can download the version appropriate for the operating system on your computer. The link is also in the description below. Once you've downloaded your image writing software, Etcher in this specific case, go ahead and install it. You're on your own for that part. Once it's installed, you're ready to write the image to your SD card. Go ahead and insert your SD card into your card reader and place it into the computer at this point. This is where things can get a little dangerous. Make absolutely 100% certain that you know what the drive letter Windows has assigned to your SD card is. You can remove and reinsert the card if you're unsure to see which letter goes away and comes back when you do so. I'll also note you can do this within Etcher while it's open, and you can see the letter vanish and come back when you reinsert it. I can't tell you what your specific drive letter will be, as that will vary by computer and your own specific hardware setup. Now we're ready to write the OS image to the SD card. Go ahead and launch Etcher. This interface is what it looked like as of 3/6/2020, so if it's changed since then, I'm sorry, but you'll have to refer to its help files or documentation. For this version of Etcher, go ahead and click on the Select Image icon. This will open a recently used folder typically. Here you want to navigate to whatever folder you downloaded the OS image to. Mine is in a folder called Downloads. Yours might be somewhere else. Select the image by either double-clicking it or clicking it once and then clicking Open. Next up, click Select Target. This is where you have to choose the drive letter of your micro SD card. Whatever drive letter you select will be completely erased, so if you choose the wrong drive here, it might have catastrophic results for you. Be careful. Finally, look it over. If you have the image you want selected and the proper drive letter selected, then go ahead and click Flash. Sit back and wait. It'll take a few minutes and will vary depending on your computer hardware, micro SD card speed, and the speed of your card reader and some other factors. We'll fast forward through that part. Okay, so now you should have your OS installed on the card. Hooray! Next you'll want to remove the card and insert it into the Odroid Go Advance directly. No, we haven't added any games yet, but that's okay, folks. In most cases, you have to do this step first because most of the OSs write a bunch of folders to the card after they boot for the first time within the device, and we need those folders. After the device powers up and fully boots, the next step is to clap and jump around. Yay! Once you're done with that, power off the system and pull the card out. Next up, we're back to the computer. So this is where things get a little more complicated for Windows users. Windows doesn't natively see, read, or write to the Linux formatted partitions that were created on the microSD card. This is something of a problem because, well, that's where the games actually go. If you're using Windows, you'll need to download another program to handle all that Linux partition stuff. There are a few that typically will give you access to these drive formats, but the easiest one to use that works the most consistently from what I've tested is the Linux File System for Windows by Paragon Software. You can download that program from Paragon's website, which will be linked in the description below. One thing to note is that this is not free software. It does come with a 10-day trial that lets you use it as much as you want in that time frame. I will add at this point that I have no affiliation with them. I don't get a cent if you buy their software, they don't know I'm doing this video or anything like that. And personally, I don't even really use it anymore because I do have a Linux installation on my computer, and I'll show you a glimpse of Ubuntu at the end so you can see what it looks like. Now back to the Paragon software. It's not particularly user-friendly, and there are some steps that you need to take to ensure that once you move the data over to the card, that the Odroid Go Advance will see it properly. If you don't do these steps, there is a very good chance that you could spend an awful lot of time transferring your files onto an SD card, and then the Go Advance won't see them at all once that card is inserted. And yes, unfortunately, I speak from experience here. Don't make my mistakes. So here's the deal. Insert your microSD card into your computer. The computer will see it and should assign a drive letter automatically. But that's not the drive you want. That's the main OS drive or partition. In the Paragon software, which you should now see in the system tray as I'm showing you here, you'll see another drive and a little arrow next to it which will let you mount and unmount that drive. The drive is probably already mounted, but if it isn't, you can just go ahead and click the arrow to mount it. If the drive was already mounted when you clicked the arrow and you unmounted it, don't worry, just click the arrow again. After that, you can open the drive in Windows Explorer like normal. You should see a bunch of folders named by the game system that they're for. Put your images into the proper folders. How do you know what goes where and what formats work? Well, I suggest hitting up the forums on HardKernel's site for that. Also note that for some systems, you'll need additional BIOS files. These are typically copyright protected, so as I mentioned before, I can't provide links to those here. You can either dump your own or track them down in any way that you see fit. For BIOS files, the folder they go into will actually vary depending on the version of the OS that you installed. For example, if you're using EmuElec, the BIOS files don't go into the same place as they do if you're using Batocera. You'll need to refer to the documentation for those OS builds to determine which files you need and where they go. Once you figure all that out, go ahead and transfer the files that you want to transfer. I would suggest just moving a few things at first. If you're moving a bunch of large CD images, for example, I'd say transfer maybe only 3 or 4 and then stop. Don't do anything else. At this point, we have something else we need to do. If you don't do this step, this is what will likely cause major problems, the primary of which is the Odroid Go Advance not seeing the files you just moved over to the SD card. What we need to do now is go back to the system tray. Open up the little window for the Paragon software again, and click the little arrow to unmount the drive. This is very important. Now, after that's done, go ahead and remove the card reader and card. Insert the card back into the Odroid Advance and power it on. You should see your games now. If for some reason you don't, then don't worry my friends, there should be a pretty easy way to correct that problem from here. If you do see the games you just moved to the card, then shut off the Odroid Go Advance, remove the memory card, and put it back into the computer, and repeat the process to transfer more games until you have all the ones moved over that you want. Just ensure that you mount the drive, move your games, and then unmount the drive. If you did not see the games you moved over in the previous step, then we have an extra action to take. Go ahead and put the memory card back into the reader on your computer. This time, don't mount the drive in the Paragon software. Instead, expand the Paragon software window like this. Then go here and click on the Verify button. This could take a while depending on how much stuff you moved onto the card. Once it's done, remove the card and put it back in the Go Advance. You should see everything fine this time. And that's about it, everyone! Oh yeah, did you want to see how you transfer games in Ubuntu? Well, the drive just shows up. You move them over, and that's that. Here, take a look. Now, there is a possibility you might have to change read and write permissions in Linux. That, if you're inexperienced, is what I would technically refer to as a giant pain in the butt. Now, you can change them, but if you don't know what you're doing in Linux, you'll have to go look that up and do some research before you'll figure out how to get it corrected. Do I recommend performing your own Linux install? Well, sure, why not? I'm not going to cover how to do that here, that's well beyond the scope of this video. But it never hurts to learn something new, right? It definitely makes handling the SD card much simpler, and you don't have to worry about time limits for special software or anything like that. And while I'd love to help everyone install Linux if that's what they wanted to do, I just can't answer any questions on how to do that. It's too involved and there are too many variables. One thing I will note is that for me personally, I just installed Linux on a separate drive as I've mentioned in previous videos. I did this so I could keep it completely isolated and just select that drive at boot up and not have to worry about dual boot or multi-boot or any of that stuff. So there's a lot of different ways to tackle this, and I would just suggest checking on that and doing some research on your own if you're interested in it. Alright, there you go, folks. That's how you download and install the operating system and transfer your game and system files to a micro SD card using a Windows-based computer for use on the Odroid Go Advance, along with a little bit of a peek on how to do some of the similar things in Linux. Now this might seem like a lot, and yeah, it kind of is. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is not a very simple process. This is something that you'll need to put some work into. Now the benefit of this is, sure, you get a brand new experience out of everything. But aside from that, if you have an interest in the Raspberry Pi or other single-board computers, the way that you do things on those is extremely similar to the way you do things for this Odroid Go Advance. So this experience will translate very well for use on other single-board computers down the road. And that brings us to the close of another video, my friends. What did you think about the process? Do you think it looks like it's too complicated, or do you think it looks easy? Either way, go ahead and sound off in the comments below. Feel free to ask any questions you might have in there as well. With that, I will say thanks for watching, and see me later.